What's going on, everybody? My name is Frank Davos, and again, I'm sick, and so I figured, why not make another sick video?
Wow, nice carpet.
Today we're going to be talking about the Leica M6 and the Leica MP, particularly just what are the differences. I know that there are a lot of Leica M6 users that are interested in the quote-unquote upgrade to the MP, and so we're just going to talk about the differences, and I'm not going to be the one to say which one's better because I personally think they're both amazing. Okay, so let's first preface this entire video by saying with both of these cameras, you're going to make the exact same 35mm image. There will be no difference. And so that's very important to keep in mind. The price of the Leica M6 are going up. They're nearing the Leica MP on the used market anyways, but the new prices are insanely different. Well, I should say that there are no new prices for the Leica M6, but if you were to buy the Leica MP new, it would be insanely, vastly more expensive than the Leica M6. So that's something to keep in mind. The Leica MP technically is considered an upgrade, I think, because of obviously the price, but also because Leica fully services these. They still make these today, and so there's parts, there's everything. Whereas the Leica M6, they can still be serviced by Leica, I'm pretty sure. I know I said in my last video about my MP that they couldn't be. I think they can be, but I'm just not sure that they can service the light meter on these guys. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. So let's talk quickly about the differences. My version of the Leica M6 is the TTL model, and there are some differences, and I'll try and explain those as well from the classic version. The first thing that's different, I think, is the size. I know you probably can't really tell, and honestly, it's marginal. The Leica M6 is a bigger camera than the Leica MP. Although weight-wise, I don't know which one's heavier, but if I were to guess right now, I think it would be this one. I'll obviously put it up on the screen so you guys don't have to go digging. But I want to say, and it could be the lens as well, but I want to say the MP is just a little bit more hefty. It's probably because of its all brass construction versus the Leica M6. I don't know if it's brass or aluminum or what it is. Again, I should probably find this stuff out before I make these videos, but who cares? You'll notice the engravings. There is no Leica red dot on the black models of these cameras on the MP, but there is on the M6. You can get black dot versions. I've seen them out there, but for the most part, all of these will come with the red dot versus these don't have any engravings or anything etched on the front other than this little R for the rewind lever. The first thing you'll notice about the Leica MP on the top is there's a couple differences from the M6, and the first of which being that there's a really nice engraving here on the top. I really like that. I think it's very sharp. The second thing you'll notice is that the shutter lever is all brass versus the shutter lever on the M6, which is plasticky, sort of. The other thing you'll notice is the rewind lever is the old school M2, M3 version, where it's just you pop it up and you turn it. It's a little bit slower than the M6, which is the windy one where you kind of flip out the lever and then you give it a little. And then my version on the M6 has the bigger dial. A classic version would have the smaller dial that's very similar to the MP. So this dial on the M6 TTL is more similar to the digital M models, where it turns in the direction that the arrow points. It's bigger versus with the MP, it's a bit smaller of a dial. It turns in the opposite direction, and it's a little bit frustrating. The M2, the MP, the MA, they all have these smaller dials that turn the opposite direction from the arrow. I explained it in my MP video. I don't want to do that embarrassing thing again, but a lot of people prefer this. If you only have one Leica, I like the smaller dial, but if you're like me, I have the Leica M9. They feel very similar in use because the dials turn the same way and it just makes a little bit more sense in my brain. versus the MP. It's kind of sometimes hard to switch between the Leica M9 and the MP because the dials turn different ways, they're different sizes. It's a very small nitpicky thing to worry about. But when you're like me and you're shooting these cameras literally every single day, both of them all the time, sometimes you do wish that it felt the same and you didn't have to like rack your brain to figure out which camera you're using, what direction the dial goes, etc. It's a small nitpicky thing. If you only have one Leica and if you're only a Leica 35mm shooter, it really just doesn't matter at all. The thing that I don't like about the M6 TTL is this plasticky shutter lever. They're annoying to me. I feel like why couldn't they all just have, like I've seen M6 a la carte versions that have the brass lever. They're just so much better. They feel way better. They feel a lot less cheap, like they're gonna break. It's a small thing again, but these are all gonna be small things because both of these cameras are great and you really, honestly, truly can't go wrong with either. Another difference that I think is important to discuss is that the MP has the newer viewfinder, which is definitely better in some situations where there's light. The light can hit the angle of the viewfinder in a certain way to sort of flare it out, and that happens on the M6. It's happened on both my M6s. It's happened on my M2, all of the older viewfinders. You get some flare sometimes and it makes it really difficult to focus. But on the newer MP model, it really cuts down that flare and it's a lot easier to focus. So that's something that's, I know you can upgrade the viewfinders. Mine is the 0.85 magnification viewfinder. You can get these upgraded, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure how much it costs. Maybe I'll do some digging and I'll put them up right here. The other difference with this particular model is TTL. This MP has TTL metering. This camera has TTL flash metering. So this won't work like if you were to attach a flash to the MP and you switch your flash to TTL, it's not going to be able to pick up on that, which is odd. You think that it would be the same, but it's not. Versus this TTL version, which you can toss a flash on it and it will meter automatically for you. That's a nice feature, but one thing I realized is that I've rarely used flash. I have a Leica SF20, I think, and when I do use it, I'm fine with using the automatic or manual setting on it. There's a difference between automatic and TTL, and that difference can probably be explained in a different video from someone else. But the way I understand it is with automatic, you basically set your camera's perimeters, so f2.8, f5.6. You set the ISO, and then the flash is able to detect how much light input it needs. Versus TTL, where everything's just automatic. So whatever you change your camera to, you don't have to do it again on the flash, and it'll just read how much light output it needs. So those are the differences. Small difference, nothing really related to this video, but a little interesting tidbit that you can get here by subbing. So if you want more little tidbits, just hit that sub button. On mine, the ISO dial is different. So that's something I guess that's interesting. I'll get my face out of there so it focuses. So that's the ISO of the M6. It has the temperatures of the ISO. I don't know if that's development related. Again, I should have looked this up. I really should have. It's tough to make these videos sometimes, and I'm just here to give you guys, let's just say, a physical comparison with no real knowledge behind it. But I think that that's related to the temperature of development. I'm not exactly sure. And then with my MP, as discussed on my last video, it has just the basic ISO from ISO 6 to ISO 6400. Now let's talk about who they're for. If you have an M6, is it really worth the upgrade? These are all questions. I hate when videos say this, but truly, these are all questions that only can be answered by you. For me, I bought the MP because I thought it would be a great forever camera, and it had a light meter, it had everything that the M6 had, a better build quality, better viewfinder. By the time I upgraded the M6 with the new viewfinder, it was gonna end up costing around a similar ballpark, especially if you buy this used, the MP used, which I did. I just said, you know what, I'll pay extra. I like the black paint very much on this. I didn't have this camera at the time when I bought this. I had a different Leica M6 TTL, the silver model, and I had a Leica M2 silver. And so I really just wanted a black paint camera. I like this rewind lever better than this one. I find this one like kind of ruins the design of the camera, but that's just totally personal preference. It's faster on the M6, so if you're someone who, I don't know, is going to war and needs to rewind their film very quickly, the M6 for sure wins in that regard. But otherwise, they're virtually the same camera. To me, there isn't much of a difference. I would maybe advise most of you guys who are considering the two to maybe buy an M6 and then use the savings to buy a lens, because that's where you're really getting the Leica look. That's really what's going to make the difference on these two cameras. So with this camera, I have the dual range paired with the M6, the 50mm dual range. It's my favorite lens. And then I have the 35mm Summicron paired with my MP. Both are amazing. Like I said, I have the 0.85 times magnification viewfinder on the M6. So the frame lines are a bit different with the 0.85. You don't get the 28mm frame lines, which you get in the 0.0 or the 0.72 magnification viewfinders. My last TTL was the standard 0.72 times magnification. Just look out for that. But if you're like a 35mm shooter or a 50mm shooter, I would definitely consider the 85. I love using 50mm on this 85. It's just like the best experience basically that one can have, other than an M3 with a 50mm. If you're thinking about upgrading to the MP, just realize that you're doing it only because you want the MP, and not because it's a better camera, not because it does anything different, not because it feels that much different. I mean, you're going to tell yourself a million reasons, but at the end of the day, you just want it. And maybe videos like my previous MP video don't do a great job at portraying that, it's not that much better than the M6, and maybe it adds to your desire of that camera. And for that, I'm not sorry, because I really love the MP, and it's, my favorite 35mm film camera that I've ever used. But just know that it's not that much different, if at all, to the M6. I think most people would be extremely happy with the M6. This was my original dream camera that I have been lusting over for the past over a decade in photography. So this was the camera that I always aspired to owning. And now that I have another one back in my hands, it's really hard to decide, is this worth it? Like, is it really worth it? It's probably not. I know how much I love this camera. I know I keep saying I love it, but I think everyone would be just as happy with the M6. Now, that being said, I'm saying goodbye to both of them. And I'm not going to tell you why yet, but I am going to show you in my next video. Take some guesses in the comments. And we'll see you guys in the next video, where I will unveil the reason why I'm going to let both of these cameras go and try something new. So that's it. That is all. Thank you guys again for watching. Thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. It is kind of crazy to me still. I wouldn't even be making any of these videos if it wasn't for you guys kind of like hyping me up, because sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit creatively drained, especially having two babies. Life is just the grind right now, and to make videos about things that I love, which is cameras, is a lot of work. And without your guys' support, I probably wouldn't be able to muster up the energy to do these videos. So thank you all so much. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I love talking about this stuff. I've had both of these cameras for a long time, and they're both such amazing machines that I really think you can't go wrong with either. Feel free to hit the sub button if you got something out of it, and we'll see you in the next video with a special surprise.